The next speaker that we have is Professor Masumi Igarashi, whom we all know very well, Senior Assistant Professor at the Center for Liberal Arts and Language Education, Okayama University. She was earlier museum curator. Her main interests are Japanese modern artists and their international activities. The discussant is someone known to all of us very well in Delhi and in India, Professor Rajeev Lochan, an eminent scholar artist. He of the National Gallery of Modern Art. In fact, we so associated NGMA with him for several decades. Recipient of Japanese government fellowships, he's held many exhibitions of his artworks with both national and international recognition. Over to you, Professor Igarashi. This is really very interesting because we look at the cultural exchanges between India and Japanese painters during the beginning of the 20th century. I must say that before I was coming here, I have, just by coincidence, saw this book that was lying with me, which was by about Yoshida Hiroshi, who came to India in 1930. And the woodblock prints. I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating, the kind of, the pictures that he drew of India that period of time. So obviously this was a period of a lot of exchanges. So over to you. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much for kind introduction, Madam Ambassador. And first of all, I'd like to say congratulations on launching of this India-Japan Study Forum. It's an exciting project. Also, thank you for inviting me, Mosai and the Embassy of Japan and the Japan Foundation, all people who made this happen to this inaugural lecture. It's quite an honor. Okay, let me begin. My talk today is about India-Japan relationship in modern art. First, I will talk about I will talk about how it started. It's all the same story. Many people have talked, and what effect it brought to both countries. Then I will present you some issues we face today in studies of this international and historical artistic exchanges. The beginning of the exchanges is Japanese art critic and educator Okakura Kakuzo's visit to India in 1901. He actually left Japan in December of 1901 and arrived in Calcutta in January of 1902. So it took him like more than a month. And so you can see that it's not an easy trip. It took me 8 hours from Tokyo last week. So, okay, anyway, let me tell you about a little bit of background of this key person. As you know, in the process of modernizing the country in the late 19th century, Japan almost abandoned traditional cultures and adopted Western cultures, including art and religions. These are from two famous temples in Nara, Kofukuji, this one is Kofukuji, then Toshodaiji. People lost faith in religion, especially in Buddhism, and the new governments did not support them too. As a result, many important temples fell into trouble financially. They could not maintain their property anymore, and even statues of the Buddhas and deities. These are pictures of those statues abandoned in the storage without proper care. It's so sad. And Japanese artists began to learn Western paintings because one of the reasons is, of course, traditional paintings lost its customers and oil painting became popular. Even the government of Japan encouraged the Western style and invited Western painters as teachers. Isn't it a familiar story to you? Yes, I think so. These are oil paintings by Ravi Varma, hugely popular in 19th century India. Then in Japan, Ernest Fenollosa, a young American employed by the government of Japan to educate Japanese students in Western ways, happened to discover the value of Japanese traditional art. Okakura, who was Fenollosa's former student at the Tokyo University, later working for Monbusho, helped Fenollosa promote traditional style of painting and organize exhibitions and study groups. Then they together pressured the government to establish art school for traditional art. That is the Tokyo Art School, Tokyo University of Art today. Later, Okakura became the principal of the school. Similar phenomenon occurred in India a little later. The colonial government tried to promote Western style painting by establishing art schools. The Government School of Art Calcutta was one of them. However, in the school, the principal, Ernest Binfield Havel, realized the beauty of Indian paintings and defended them. With him, Abanindranath Tagore reformed the school programs for new Indian art, not for Western art anymore. I hope you see a similar pattern here with some support from Western Orientalists. Indigenous nationalists, artists, and cultural critics stood up to defend the traditional art, rediscover their values, and promote it. I think it is a typical path for many non-Western countries, inevitably to take in the process of the modernization of the country. What amazes me, though, is that key persons in this pattern in different countries coincidentally encountered at the beginning of the 20th century. Okay, I moved back to Okakura in India. What brought him to India is not certain. Most probable theory is that it is Swami Vivekananda. Informed about Vivekananda's success at the World Parliament of Religions in 1893 in Chicago, United States, Okakura wanted to meet him. Okakura was planning a World Conference of Religions in Japan and hoping to invite Vivekananda to Japan. Unfortunately, Vivekananda's health condition did not allow him to travel to Japan. Soon in July, he passed away. However, through Vivekananda, Okakura met several important people of the cultural revival movement in Bengal. One of such people is Rabindranath Tagore. In their brief meetings, what they discussed was unknown, but it seems that Rabindra had empathy with Okakura's quest to revive and develop traditional art against prevailing influence of Western art. Later, Rabindra asked Okakura to send some Japanese artists to India. This is the beginning of Japanese artists' visit to India. Okakura sent his two disciples to India upon his return to to Japan. Yokoyama Taikan on your left and Hishida Shunso on your right. In 1903, the two artists arrived in Calcutta. They stayed at the Tagore residence at Jorasanko and often interacted with Abanindranath and Gaganindranath Tagore. Abanindra taught them about Indian subjects, such as customs and goddesses, and Taikan and Shunso painted works of such subjects. This is by some of paintings by Taikan and also these Shunso. Abanindra had opportunities to observe the Japanese artist painting skills. Especially, Abanindra seemed to be impressed by Taikan's wash technique, in which a painter blurs figures or background using a wet brush without any pigment, or simply using just water, just like washing out unnecessary pigment. It brought an effect that is completely opposite to oil painting. Abanindra and later Nandalar both adapted this technique to their own paintings. When Indian artists resisted Western influence, Taikan brought an alternative that is much more akin to their own tradition. On Taikan and Shunso's side, visiting India and interacting with people there brought some changes in their paintings. Before, Indian subjects were almost exclusively Buddhist religious icons in Japan. In other words, India was known to many Japanese artists only as the origin of Buddhism. Moreover, those subjects were understood through Chinese filters. However, Taikan and Shunso experienced life in modern India. With Abanindra's support, the two Japanese artists broadened their scope of Indian subject. When we think about exchanges among Indian and Japanese artists, Taikan, Shunso, Rabindranath, and Abanindranath are the first generation, and their relationships remained much later. When Rabindra visited Japan in 1924, Nandalar accompanied him. Because Okakura and Shunso had passed away by then, Taikan hosted Rabindra and his companies in Japan. This is a picture of Taikan and Nandalar taken at Taikan's residence in Tokyo. After Taikan and Shunso, Japanese artists kept coming to India through Tagore connection. The next artist is Katsuta Shokin. I presented a paper on him in the 2018 conference, and it is published, as they said, so you may take a look at it for the detail through Mosai website. Rabindra asked Okakura to send a Japanese painter as a teacher in the Tagore family, Tagore household. This may be a predecessor of the later known as Vichitra art studio. Staying at the Tagore's at Jorasanko, Shokin taught the youth in the Tagore family. In his diary, we can see Abanindra and Gaganindra took a very good care of him. Abanindra seemed to teach Shokin Indian subject from Ramayana and other Indian classics. Those Indian subjects were new to Japanese artists who had known Indian subject only as Buddhist paintings. Abanindra appointed Shokin to be a visiting teacher at the Government School of Art, Calcutta, where Abanindra with Havel reprogrammed to promote Indian national art. Unfortunately, Shokin had to return to Japan early due to his worsening financial and health condition. However, one of his post-Indian works, The Departure of the Buddha, here you're seeing, remains one of his masterpieces today. Although this work is a Buddhist subject, it is not a strictly religious icon anymore, and it became a kind of history painting. India became not just a remote, unrealistic origin of Buddhism, but a country with a rich history and lively people for Shokin. After Shokin,
You want to change the presentation?
Thank you so much. We always need that kind of life savior. Thank you. It says that I'm muted. Am I okay? All right. Yes, okay. Then after Shokin, several artists visited India upon request of Rabindra. Dr. Eve Lo Kazahara presented a paper on this subject at the previous conference. She provided a chronological list of those artists with biographical information. Especially Alai Kampo is noted as a beloved artist by Rabindra. Rabindra met Kampo when he visited Japan in 1916. Rabindra asked Kampo to copy some Japanese art for him so that Rabindra could take them home. Then he asked Kampo to come to India. While teaching at the Vichitra, Kampo in India studied ancient Buddhist sites. We know Kampo visited Puri and Konarak with Nandalar and copied wall paintings at Ajanta. His later works reflect his study and experiences there. Some of his works commissioned by Rabindra remain in the museums at Shantiniketan today. Okay, these exchanges between India and Japan are surely important, but there are many holes to be filled. For example, the first generation of these exchanges, that is Abindra, Nandalar in India, and the Taikan and the Shunso from Japan, has attracted much attention from scholars of Japan and India. But the second generation, that is Shokin and after, has not studied thoroughly. The second area that we need more research is Indian artists who worked with these Japanese visiting artists or who were influenced by them. We do know that Abanindra and Nandalar adopted Taikan's wash painting technique, but we do not know about other artists well and what else they learned from Japanese art. Some of Abanindra's students, Satindranath Mazumdar, I hope I'm pronouncing right. Okay, Professor Lochan helped me. M.A.R. Chugutai and Krishnappa Venkatappa, Sarada Wukil, Barda Wukil, and Mukude, all these Abanindra students, they adopted wash technique. But these artists still remain relatively unknown in Japan. Okay, the third area that we should study more is various activities Japanese visiting artists. What exactly did they do in India? Many of them were invited as a teacher, but we do not know who their students were and what they taught to the students. They must have produced many paintings in India, but we do not have many examples. For Taikan, Shunso, and Shokin, we know they produced many paintings of Indian subject with help from Abanindra. One well-known example is painting of Sujata. Here. Okay. Dr. Sato Shino at the Taikan Museum in Tokyo once presented Sujata paintings by these three artists and pointed out, of course, obviously, the similarity. She also presented a popular print that might be a model for the Shunso's Sarasvati. Hosting these Japanese artists, Abanindra must have shown them many examples of Indian paintings and prints to be samples. We also know Abanindra helped Shokin to paint Ramayana subject from Shokin's diary. Abanindra taught him the story and its highlight. In the 2018 conference, I introduced this painting, Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana in the Forest by Shokin. This was a book illustration, so sorry about the quality. And the real painting itself seemed to be in hand of grandchild of Abanindra today. Then in 2020, in an Indian art gallery, DAG, Dark World, at the Claridge's Hotel, which is very close from here, contacted me and told me that they have a painting that may be by Shokin. The picture is of Rama's departure. We know Shokin painted this particular subject from his diary, but nobody in Japan had never seen the actual painting, and nobody knew where it was. I was so excited and ready to visit India again to see the painting by myself. However, the COVID-19 came and I could not see it until this time. Dr. Kishore Singh at the DAG kindly arranged, Mr. Kishore Singh at DAG kindly arranged a special viewing for me last Saturday. It is a beautiful piece and relatively in good condition. In Shokin's sketchbook, we see this drawing, probably his study for figure who leans on pillow cushion, father, king. The reason I introduced this episode of mine here is that I think there must be many other works like this case in India. When Taikan, Shinso, and Shokin ran out of money in India, the Tagores helped them by organizing their exhibitions and let them sell their paintings. The record shows that the artist created a lot of paintings to sell, or other times they created Indian subject, paintings of Indian subject by commission from Tagore family members. However, we do not have those paintings today, with only a few exceptions like this. There must be paintings of Indian subject by Japanese artists. We should collect information about them. I hope this becomes a good start, and in the near future, a lot more paintings will come to the surface. As a concluding note, I would like to say this. Indian scholars of Japanese culture, Indian students who are interested in Japanese art, there are many things you can help the development of studies in this field. I would like to encourage you, go to libraries, government archives in India, search record in the Tagore household, the colonial government, and the Bengal public records. Visit museums and art collectors. You should dig up dusty documents and find forgotten Japanese paintings. In such research, Indian scholars and students have big advantages in languages and access to institutions. So please do. There will be a treasure hidden in a dark corner of archives and museum storages. That will be a huge contribution to this field. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to ask Rajeev Lochan to come and sit here, and maybe we'll have really a discussion. This is absolutely fascinating, what you have been able to discover. And I'm sure Rajeev ji will know, please. Probably knows of more paintings which are hidden away somewhere in there.
Well, I had a lot of notes because I knew what she was going to speak, but I'm going to keep that aside. Well, must congratulate all of you, the organizers, whom I don't wish to name personally, for having initiated a dialogue of this nature. And must compliment you for putting these 4 decades and more into a capsule. Well, my compliments. And I'd like to start on a philosophical note by quoting from no other than Marcel Proust. I'm going to be brief, just going to raise some questions. Each one of us is similar and dissimilar to each one of us as many as there are eyes and minds that awaken every morning. The role of a creator is to provide an image to it, as our observations are not mere passive records. I think what you have tried to do today, and that's what I'm summing up as, is truly a cross-pollination of sensibilities, which has happened in the past. And I wonder why we have not done the same kind of research that you are engaged. It's an area of my interest because I have a personal engagement with this period, with the people of this land, and with the people in the creation of those, which I will come to later. Would you not say that this is truly a revalidation of tradition, that both in the context of your country and my country, we're trying to do at this creative level?
Oh.
Your response.
Okay, I have a mic. Okay,
Yes.
You said
Revalidation.
revalidation. Okay, okay. The
Revalidation of tradition.
tradition by those artists
Yes,
in the period.
absolutely.
Okay, revalidation. Yeah, I think some people said they are going to rediscover the value, the forgotten value, but probably we can say that they are trying to create new things, maybe combining new art and traditional art. They want to keep their, national tradition, but they want to keep up with the Western, I don't know, new
Can I add
knowledge.
here?
Yeah,
Can
of
I
course,
add here?
of course.
That's what I was waiting for you to say. That, well, the inner vitality of matter, the search, that was the Japanese spirit, both in as well as in Indian spirit, with a new technique and a conceptual framework. This is what this true exchange between Japan and India did. And as a result of Okakura and the several artists that you have shown your work in terms of, the residues of that cross-pollination are the works of art. Because works of art, and that's why I said works of art, they are the only living examples of the transformation of culture.
Oh, I see.
I think you'll have to keep the mic closer to you. They can't hear
Sorry,
the back.
in my excitement, I was really wondering that, how are we going to make a dialogue? Because it was, I think, besides one thing very interesting that I found.
Can you hear at the back? Is it okay?
Yeah, I thought I was loud enough.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
One thing very interesting that I found that even I didn't have a clear idea of, that it was actually Vivekananda's
Right.
this thing, vis-a-vis Tagore. Tagore comes in much later.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Tagore comes in much. But I think the celebration of E.B. Hevel, like Okakura, perhaps needs to be relooked at.
Right.
Because it was unfortunate that E.B. Hevel, what should I say, moved out of the scene.
Right. Ari, because
for
of
whatever
his
reason.
health, probably health condition.
Absolutely, whatever the scene. But then I think and there's another name that comes to my mind, is Sir John Woodroffe, who's written several books, Shakti and Shakta, and various other, who even said that I shall wipe out the cow dung of the British Empire. These were the kind of nationalists. So perhaps that was also that nationalist spirit that, we need to recall.
Yes.
I think these are questions that have emanated from your talk, which I'm only trying to, rather than just discussing, trying to enhance more. Yeah. Would you?
Okay. Probably the Havel is an interesting person to look at, but unfortunately, as you said, he went out from the scene early. And also in Japan, we don't have much information about him. I don't think there is any material in Japanese. Maybe some. Probably I just don't know. And when we think about about Havel, we always need to think about Fenorosa because it's they are kind of a counterpart, helping Japanese, helping Indian to revive their tradition. Then the evaluation of Fenorosa is kind of, I don't know, it's not stable.
You did draw a parallel between Raja Ravi Verma and the introduction of Western academic principles and all that. Well, that aside, because this is like a revival. In fact, in India, we call Bengal school as the new Renaissance.
Oh, right, Bengal Renaissance.
Bengal school as the new Renaissance. People may agree, they may disagree. That's a different matter, so to say. And in continuation with that, in fact, you named a couple of artists, and I'm very, I take that opportunity to say that I come from a family of artists as the last descendant of this tradition.
Okay.
My father was the disciple of Asit Kumar Haldar, who was the disciple of Abanindranath Tagore. So here is this lineage, and in that context, I want to say, what is your reaction as this new technique that developed of wash painting,
right?
Which was a synthesis of ukiyo, of sumie on one side and Japanese painting on the other, which I think was also an influence of this formatic effect that you see in Western academic realism.
Like impressionist, probably.
No, Renaissance. This formata, the background merging with the main image. The pigment almost getting washed out.
Okay, but sometimes in Japan, Taikan's wash painting can be said have some influence from Western impressionists, Western painting, because there are some people in West who try to express the atmosphere, not the figure and the landscape.
Not the immediate reality, but the experiential reality.
Right, atmosphere. And that kind of, things could affect Taikan or Shinso, because they are not just studying traditional
art. And in fact, I think it is Arai Kampo who had a great impact as far as the evolution of wash painting along with Abanindranath Tagore. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Good.
Actually, I have seen a picture of Abanindra and Nandalal with wash technique, but I didn't know much about other artists, other Abanindra's students. Yeah, right. Yesterday, I had opportunity to visit the National Gallery of Modern Art, where Professor Lochan was director. Okay, and I was surprised. There are lots of people, students, who actually use technique, and but I don't know that why do they use that technique? That technique can be expressed the atmosphere of the place, or but it's not just atmosphere. There must be some kind of philosophical background, because they did not want to express things directly. They want to just blur things and let the observer,
the experiential residue.
Right. Yeah. Then the observers.
In fact, I'll include here the last paintings. In fact, National Gallery of Modern Art has about 6,000 plus works of Nandalal Bose.
Oh my God.
And the last period of his, you would be very excited. I'm getting goose flesh talking to you. The last works of Nandalal Bose in themselves are like wonderful sumies, which are so minimalistic in their expression. So truly, yes.
Okay.
Last question. What do you think of another person who's been celebrated in Japan called Fuku Akino, who came to Shantiniketan and rose to be a national treasure of Japan, whose retrospective I really wanted to have during my tenure and couldn't be possible. I'm only raising questions for future research.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have to admit I don't know much about her, but she also came from Okakura's tradition. Okakura's institution, Nihon Bijutsuin, that is established by Okakura, and once it's then Taikan re-established it as a new institution, and it continues today. And they have intent annual exhibition every year. And Akinofuku is one of
the prime artists.
Right. Then since Taikan's time, Japanese artists coming to India is become kind of a tradition of intent, especially intent. Not probably many other artists, many other institutions send artists to India, but especially this intent, Okakura's intent, Taikan's intent, sent artists constantly. Not just Akinofuku, but many other.
Shantiniketan essentially.
Right. Especially Shantiniketan, because Akinofuku was actually taught in Shantiniketan,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So that's, but other artists too came to here just to observe or create some paintings. But Akinofuku would be very noted.
I'm sorry, I know we don't have the time.
Yeah,
We can
running out of
continue, but I
time
thought
now,
that,
so,
rather than trying to sum up
Yeah.
what she had very eloquently put into a capsule, this would be an interesting dialogue
Okay.
for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful interacting with you.
Thank you very much for both of you. That was most interesting. And yes, I know, when you talk about Swami Vivekananda, one of the things I recall was reading, because he wrote a lot about his time in Japan. In fact, there are records about Swami Vivekananda's, his time in Japan, which he wrote. He wrote letters and said, young people should be going to Japan. But I think though Okakura Tenshin came to see him, I don't think they met when he came, because he was unwell. And I think then the connection more was with Rabindranath Tagore. But thank you very much. It was a very fascinating session.